Welcome back, minors. My name is Tracy Kriegel. I'm a counselor here at Student Wellbeing.
My name is Amber Johnston. I'm also a counselor here at Student Wellbeing, and it's time for your morning cup of joe. So last week, we had gotten into covering mental health life lessons we've learned from playing video games. And we covered the first 4 of the ones that we were doing. So this week, we're going to continue on that path and talk about a few more of those life lessons we've learned from video games.
Do we want to just do a quick overview? Just number 1 was don't overthink or underthink. Number 2 was sometimes I have to do the repetitive stuff, but it will pay off in the end. Number 3 was sometimes you have to go off the beaten path and sometimes you must make your own doorway. And 4 was things might get harder, but I'm becoming better leveling up. And then Amber, you are on to number 5.
Number 5, sometimes you have to take a break.
Break time.
Have you ever been in a long gaming session and you just get to a boss fight and no matter what you do, you feel stuck? You tried everything and you do the level over and over and over and over again and you just keep failing. And you start to feel yourself getting frustrated. Maybe you're even feeling angry. And before you know it, you've thrown your controller across the room.
Smash, bang, boom.
Right. You go on TikTok, there are tons of videos of people who have thrown video game controllers at TVs and busted the TV. Like, just tons of them. And that's because this is a very real thing that happens. You get stuck and you play it and you play it and you play it and you just can't get past that level. And you might be cursing at the screen. You might be feeling angry. You might be pacing. You might be, doing whatever. Like you're mad, very mad at this video game. And most of us have learned that even though we don't want to in that moment, even though we want to keep grinding through and keep trying to finish that level out, sometimes, just sometimes, we can't get past it unless we take a break.
Yeah. I remember playing Tetris. I know it's a really old game, but you play it. Can't get any further. Take a break, come back, boom.
Right. and that's the magic of it. So think about that in our lives. We learn that the more upset we get, the less likely, when we play video games, the less likely we are to be successful in what we're trying to do. Why in real life do we not apply that same situation?
Good question.
When we play video games, we start making mistakes and making choices and doing things maybe where our timing is end up off and we're making the same mistake over and over and over again. Taking that break is like setting a giant reset button. It gives us time to come back fresh from a new perspective. And sometimes our brain processes things when we walk away from it. So walking away from it for a few minutes and doing something else actually allows our brain to process the problem and we can find up with solutions that we may not have otherwise seen. So just taking that break is a healthy coping mechanism and helps us come at it fresh.
I remember when I was a kid, my mom always said, it's just a game. You're supposed to be having fun. And I remember putting the game down and walking away gave me a new perspective and I'd come back and it would be fun. And I remember now, me being the parent and telling my kids the same thing, it's just a game. You're supposed to be having fun.
Right.
And just walking away gives you a new perspective. But taking a break is so cathartic.
Absolutely.
New perspective.
But think about this when you have a big set of math problems or a big problem or a project that you're working on for a given subject. And you're sitting there and you're trying to white knuckle your way through it and you're tired and you're frustrated and you keep thinking, if I can just get this finished, if I can, quote, just finish this level. Same thing. It's the same thought process. And the longer you keep doing it, you keep trying to white knuckle your way through it, the more upset and frustrated and anxious you get, and you start perceiving yourself as a failure. So when you're playing a game, taking a break for even just a little bit of time helps you come at it from a different perspective. It's the same thing when we're studying or when we're taking on a big task in our personal lives, having that, and it's actually self-care to take a break. But we feel like when we take those breaks, we're wasting time, but we're not.
Right.
It's actually part of that process. It's taking breaks allows us to come back refreshed and able to look at the problem from a new perspective, and it can increase our performance. So we should build in breaks. We should take a break when we're feeling frustrated. We should use it. Just like taking a break when I'm frustrated playing a game makes me a better gamer. It makes me better at navigating tough situations in my real life by knowing when is the appropriate time to take breaks strategically.
That's great. One of the things I share with a lot of my students is, if you've got a smartwatch, there's this little thing on there that's a mindful minute.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of research tells us if you just take 1 minute several times a day to do a mindful meditation,
Mm-hmm.
it actually is very helpful to your brain,
Uh-huh.
to your body,
Uh-huh.
and that just gives you a reset, gives you a recharge.
I call them self-care snacks. And I encourage my clients,
Mhm.
I tell them, take a minute. We want to keep it between 2 to 5 minutes. So just very, very short amount of time, at least hourly. And that could be as simple as standing up and stretching.
Yeah.
It could be going and getting a drink. It could be just walking up and down the hallway. That little alarm on your smart watch that tells you need to get your 250 steps in.
Right.
Go get your 250 steps in.
Yeah, or it's time to stand.
Yes. It's just stepping away from whatever you're working on for a couple minutes so you come back refreshed.
Right.
And it really does improve your performance and allow you to think of different solutions, be more creative, and just do better.
Right. It's just like that game. I've watched my son so many times sitting there, Call of Duty, I think he's been playing, and he puts the game down and he's sitting there and he goes into a hiding spot, whereas he's been playing and playing and playing. He gets killed several times, and then he goes to his hiding spot and he puts it on pause, and then he gets a drink, he comes back, and then he picks the game back up, and boom, he's back in the game, and he's, goes on to many different levels, and he's right back in the game, and he plays and he's successful. And I attribute that to the fact that he took a break,
Right.
gave his brain some time to relax. He was able to pick it back up and strategize. Whereas if he kept on playing, he probably would have been killed multiple times again, and he wouldn't have been able to keep going on. I think that's very important. I love what you brought in there.
So the next one, number 6, is always save before you attempt a hard level.
Awesome. Very good. Good key.
So think about this. You've been playing an RPG for the last 2 hours, and you walk into a major boss fight, and boom, you died. You just lost every bit of progress you've made since the last time you saved.
Boo, boo, boo,
All the items you found, all the experience you gained, everything. And after a few times of this happening, I bet you have learned in your history of gaming that sometimes you have to prepare just in case something bad happens. So you save right before your boss fights. I know I do.
Right.
And anybody I know that's been gaming for a while, that's what they do. They walk over and they make sure and save before they go into that major battle.
Mm-hmm.
And in some games that means saving, and other means means going back to wherever you store items or the local town and blah, 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 blah. And you deposit stuff so you don't lose it. It means preparing in case you fail.
Mm-hmm.
It's backing things up. So basically, you're going into the situation preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. Because if you weren't hoping for the best, then why are you going to go into this boss fight? Like, you're going in because you're hoping that you're going to beat this guy, right?
Like, I'm going in, I'm going to lose. Who goes in thinking that?
What's the point of playing the game at that point, right?
Right.
So, however, you're preparing for what could happen. Not saying that it will, but you want to be able to rebound, that's the key word, as quickly as possible, right?
Right.
And you can't do that if all of your weapons are stuck in that big pile of bad guys over there and you can't get to them.
Right.
So think about that test or difficult assignment you're about to take as a boss battle. How can I prepare just in case I don't do well? Am I going to study and do my best? Absolutely. But I also want to make sure that I have all my assignments turned in so that I have my points built up and I'm not putting all my eggs in the basket of doing well on this one test.
Nice.
That I am prepared just in case I get into this test and there's a question on there that totally throws me.
Like what I was saying, you don't go into the test going, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail.
Right.
Because that builds anxiety.
Uh-huh.
And then when you get in to take the test, you're so anxious when you sit down to the test. All you're hearing your brain say is, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail. And then you're so anxious that you work yourself into a panic attack.
Or you don't have that bravado going in saying that there's no way I could fail whatsoever. I'm going to ace this test. But you've planned and you prepared and you've said, okay, well, I could do well on this. I could do poor. But you know what? I'm going to plan. And in case I do badly, here's my backup plan. In case I do well, great. That's wonderful. I'll treat myself later. But in case I do badly, I don't want this to be the thing that knocks me on my rear end.
Right, exactly.
I want to be able to rebound. And so I'm taking the pressure off of myself by ensuring that if I don't do as well as I hope to, that I can still adapt and keep going.
Right. And I think one of the things I encourage my students to put in there in their thought process is, how would you prefer to feel? I prefer to feel calm. I prefer to feel confident.
Right.
And I think that's important when you're going into anything. Are you playing a game? Are you going in for a test? Are you working on a project? How would you prefer to feel?
Right.
Think through that. Nobody wants to prefer to feel anxious. Nobody wants to prefer to feel not confident.
Right.
You want to feel confident. You want to prefer to feel calm. Think through that.
Right.
And put that as a mindset. That's important.
Right. So, number 7, just in case you do fail, you might be able to reboot from your last save.
Nice.
So in your games, I don't know about you, but part of that preparation is that I will, before I make a major decision, I will create an extra save. So I have 2 saves in there, one for this decision and one for that decision. This is really effective for those of you who play RPGs or if you're making a major change in an ongoing game. So you've got 2 saves, let's say, going in there. And I really wish in real life that we could do that with video games. Like, go before you make a major decision and save so you can go back and reboot from that save.
Rewind.
Let's go back before this thing happened. I wish we could do that in real life. Like, totally make things better. But we can't. However, in certain situations, but not always, you can look at what was working before and say, okay, what's different between then and now? And essentially go back to what works.
Right. Well, I think there are situations where you can do a reset. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
Like if you fail a test, there's no reason you can't send your professor an email or go to office hours and say, hey, what are my options? What can I do?
Right. And that's one way to do it. And another way that you can do is look at your sleep. Okay. Let's say that all of a sudden I'm starting to have problems with sleeping. Okay. And I was sleeping well before and now I'm not sleeping. So then I take stock. What's changed? What's different? Oh, well, I've started having a cup of coffee every night after dinner. Oh, well, maybe I need to go back to my last save and cut that cup of coffee out because that may be what's causing me to have trouble sleeping.
Great suggestion.
So that's what I say when we reboot from our last save. It's looking at when things were working and seeing what was working about it then that's not working about it now.
Right. Excellent.
And you can kind of, like Sheldon did this in The Big Bang Theory, for any of those of you who watch that show. Like, he talked about it when he and Amy broke up. Like, how do I reboot from my last save? Now, we don't have to be as melodramatic as him because he went back to 2003. So, like, that was a little bit dramatic. And his was done for comedic effect, but we're essentially kind of doing the same thing. We're looking at what worked, when it worked, and how that's different from now.
Nice.
So, number 8. That being said, you can't pause a live game.
Darn.
So, yeah, we want to go back to what has worked in the past and look at what's different between then and now and try to figure out, hey, can I change something and try to fix things to make it work? Maybe cut out that extra cup of coffee. But sometimes we get overwhelmed and we just want a minute to regroup and catch our breath. However, as every teenager has been told to pause their online game by their parents knows, you can't pause an online game. You can't. And so sometimes we can't stop. And everything feels like it's coming at us, and that can be really, really overwhelming. And sometimes we're going to be in a high pressure situation, and it seems like no matter what we do or where we're going, we're going to end up in trouble, or we're going to lose out. We're going to lose out on one of the options. We're made to make a decision right now. So what do? And just like those situations with your parents yelling at you to turn off the game, you have to choose your priorities. You have to figure out what matters to you right now. Do you want to risk the wrath of your parents and complete the section of the game? Or do you want to turn it off and lose all of your progress? Or, worse, lose your ability to play that game. In that moment, you have to make a choice. And in those high stress moments, the best choice isn't always crystal clear. In our real lives, we find ourselves with conflicting goals. Just like in that goal, the goal of making our parents happy is one thing, and then our goal of progressing in the game is another goal. And those are two things, and they sometimes can be at odds of each other. In our real lives, sometimes we've got two separate goals that conflict each other, and we have no time to make a decision and have a decision that involves both those goals, putting them directly at odds. Like, how often does that happen in our lives? A lot.
It can happen a lot, yeah.
And so sometimes it feels like there isn't a right decision, and both ways we're losing out on something. And in those moments, waiting can be even worse. It can make us lose out on both choices. So we get no options. And so we have to make a decision, the best decision we can right now. So to put that in real life terms, let's go back to the parent example. If I wait, my parents are telling me to get off the video game, and I wait, I've essentially made a decision without making a decision. And now I'm in trouble with my parents.
Well, and I think, one question you can ask yourself is, what's the worst thing that can happen? And just ask that blanket question to yourself. What's the worst thing that going to happen if I don't do this right now? So, like, in that situation, like you gave, if you don't stop playing your game right now,
right?
Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I don't stop playing this game right now? Like, are your parents going to, like, blow the roof and, like, scream and yell at you? Or is the world going to come to an end if you don't stop playing this game right now? Do you have, like, another 5 minutes? Do you have 2 minutes? Can you get to a stopping point and stop your game and then go do what your parents asked you to do? Probably. So the world's not going to come to an end if you finish 2 minutes or 30 seconds or 5 minutes. I mean, you can yell down and say, I'll be there in 2 minutes. And everything negotiates and everything goes on and life is happy.
Right.
Your parents aren't going to, like, lose their crap.
Right.
And you can negotiate, navigate that, So now, if the house is burning down, you're probably not going to be able to finish the game because it's a life-threatening situation, obviously. So, that's different if the fire alarm's on and, you gotta go. You gotta go.
Right.
So I think you have to assess the situation as to what level of urgency it is. Yeah. So,
right.
But I think if it's them just saying, hey, you need to take out the trash, 5 minutes can happen. And, out of respect, you probably want to get to a stopping point and then go on. Same thing applies in life. If it's your roommate who's saying, hey, bud, you want to go over to Havner Center with us? And you say, yeah, I'm going to get to a stopping point on my game. I want to go with you. Can you give me 2 minutes or 5 minutes? If you explain that to your roommate, I think they're going to totally understand.
Right.
So,
But think about how that goes into other things outside of gaming.
Yeah.
And that decision that when we get incapacitated, having to make a decision. Like, let's say it's 2 romantic partners that we're interested in, and we have to choose between the 2 of them.
Sure.
You can't pause that. And the longer you put off making a decision, you can lose out on both potential partners.
Sure.
So when we look at these decisions, sometimes we have to make a decision quickly that we can live with, and then not go back and rehash that decision and say, did I make the right choice? Because I had to make the best decision I could with the information I had available to me at the time.
So pro and con it.
Yeah, so we have to pro and con it. But if we sit here and we let ourselves get that indecision that we get because we have 2 things that conflict each other, like maybe it's 2 internships.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay, I've got 2 internships, and one I really want, but one's really close to my family. And so where do I want to be? Or maybe this one puts me close to my romantic partner, and then the other one is the one that's going to advance my career more. Or there's 2 things, and I have to make a decision between 2 goals in my life that may conflict each other.
Yeah, so make your pros list, make your cons list, and which one's going to, line up with your ultimate goal. So,
Right. But don't let it sit. Don't let yourself sit on it so long, or don't let yourself be caught up in indecision so long that you end up losing out on both opportunities.
Yeah, that you don't make a decision at all.
Yes, that you don't make a decision at all. Because sometimes we've got like 24, 48 hours to make a decision.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, and if you don't make a decision at all in the game, you're probably going to die.
Yeah.
Not in life, you won't, but you lose out on what you may have. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it'd be game over.
Game over, yeah.
So
Nobody wants to see game over.
Right, nobody wants to see game
Nobody
over.
wants to see game over.
Which makes me think of Duck Hunt and the little dog, and he's like laughing, and it says game over.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I go back to Pac-Man.
Pac-Man.
Game over.
So my last mental health life lesson I have learned from gaming is that there is always a new adventure if I want it.
It's awesome.
So just like there's always another video game to play, we can always find new adventures in our life if we want to go out and seek it. And that could be a new game. It could be traveling. It could be a new relationship, romantic or platonic. It's having new relationships, new people in our lives, going to visit new places. Those are all adventures that we can go on. It could be starting a business, changing your careers midlife. Like
Nice.
I did that. Like you are available to change and create adventure in your life wherever you so choose. The great thing about it is that with a video game, we don't have to look at this as a one single game and we're done. That this is, we get excited about all the new games and new adventures we get to go on. We can do the same with our real life. This isn't a stop playing video games argument. It's not the same thing. You can still play all your video games and have fun. It's a don't stop having fun argument. And that's basically what I'm saying, is don't let your life get stagnant. You always have new adventures and new excitement awaiting around every corner as long as you're willing to go out and look for it. Adventure looks different for other people, and your adventure might be that new video game. Like, I don't know, Diablo 4 is kind of calling my name right now. So, but your adventure might be that new video game, or it might be that new hiking trail, or it might be a trip to a foreign country, or it might be a cruise, or it might be that date that you're looking forward to next weekend. Like, it can be so many different things. A book, a festival, a zip line, it doesn't matter what it is. Just don't ever stop allowing yourself to have fun.
It's great. And this is wonderful, because there's so many adventures that we have that are waiting on us. And so wonderful life lessons. So this is great, Amber.
Okay, so I hope you guys have learned a little bit about video games and things we can learn from video games. And I look forward to talking to you guys next week. Have a great week.
Take care, miners.
For more information about mental health and wellness, contact Student Wellbeing at 204 Norwood Hall. And you can also give us a call at 573-3 341-4211.
The song Happy Days is brought to us by music from www.free-stock-music.com. You can also add and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook using our handle @S&T Wellbeing.